She entered the luxury wedding wearing a simple dress, worn-out shoes, and a story no one there had the courage to hear. She was ignored at the entrance, humiliated with polite smiles, and pushed into the farthest corner of the room. But she didn't raise her voice, didn't accuse. She simply sat down, prayed, and waited. Because when the heart has purpose, it doesn't need permission to remain. In that mansion filled with white flowers and flawless appearances, what was missing most was exactly what she carried: a living memory, a promise unbroken. The bride was beautiful and empty, surrounded by luxury yet starving for something she couldn't even name. The dress was perfect, the bouquet carefully chosen, but her eyes were searching for something no invitation could deliver, no speech could reach, until from the back of the room a gaze stopped her, a gaze that didn't demand. It simply remembered, and that alone was enough to make everything fall apart, or perhaps finally fall into place. This story isn't about scandal, it's about presence, about a woman the world forgot, who never stopped loving, about a bride who discovered on her wedding day that the greatest blessing in life doesn't come from the altar, it comes from the root. It wasn't a designer gown that transformed her. It was the reunion with something time couldn't erase. And in front of everyone who judged without knowing, she chose to dance with the one who loved her first. There are stories that don't fit in photographs or speeches. They live in the in-betweens, in the silences, in the back pews. And when they finally reveal themselves, they don't ask for applause. They ask for reverence. Because there is nothing more powerful than a quiet love that refuses to leave. And if you think this is just a story about reunion, then maybe you haven't understood it yet. This is a story about what happens when truth walks in, even without an invitation.
Before diving into this exciting story, we want to make sure you don't miss out on any of our incredible content. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, now is the perfect time to do so. By subscribing, you'll become a valued member of our growing community, where we share amazing stories, insightful lessons, and much more. Don't wait any longer. Hit that subscribe button now and join us on this amazing journey.
Brushes glide with surgical precision across Grace Whitmore's skin, inside a dressing room as golden as the promises that never come true. Oval mirrors reflect her wrinkle-free face, her blonde hair pinned with jeweled clips, her dress so tight, it leaves no room for the past. "I asked for white lilies, not carnations," she snaps, cutting the air with the same icy tone she inherited from her mother. The hairdresser tries to explain but is silenced by a sharp glare and a dismissive flick of the hand. An assistant stumbles while picking up the veil and nearly bursts into tears after being dismissed. "I don't want incompetence on the most important day of my life," Grace declares, while her mother, seated on a velvet couch, watches with silent pride. Here, perfection is performance and tenderness a weakness. No one dares contradict them. Not even the groom who waits in the garden, unaware that his bride no longer fits the mold they crafted for her. The antique clock reads 10:42 when an employee brings in the rings in a velvet box. Grace holds them with cold but steady fingers. "Where's the florist? This is a mess." The scent in the air is overly sweet, nauseating like empty promises. The photographers ask her to smile, but the smile never reaches her eyes. She knows how to be charming. But today, something inside feels unsettled, like the ceremony is the ending to an untold story. Her mother, standing in the back, fixes her own makeup and whispers, "Remember, you're a Whitmore. That's what matters." Grace nods, but her reflection hesitates. Behind the makeup, there's a shadow that even the bright dressing room lights can't erase. Outside, guests arrive in luxury cars. Stylish hats, high heels, and calculated smiles parade down the rose-lined carpet. The mansion's white columns seem built to repel anyone without pedigree. Waiters serve champagne, and laughter echoes through the garden like bells in a church that's lost its faith. The groom, adjusting the cuffs of his linen shirt, takes a deep breath. He notices Grace's distant expression through the window and feels a sting, but swallows it. She's just nervous, that's all, he thinks. He has no idea there's another kind of nervousness, the kind that comes before a reunion with something forgotten, buried but far too alive to ignore, while everything inside gleams in excess. In a quiet corner of the city, wrinkled hands gently fold a floral dress. Miss Bernice Taylor finishes pressing the fabric, smooths it with her palm and folds it as if preserving a promise. Her eyes, full of tenderness, scan the small room where everything is simple and sacred. She carefully selects her shoes, wipes every crack in the leather with a damp cloth, and places an old photo and a small Bible into her brown purse. In front of a worn-out mirror, she pins her hair into a bun, secures it with a clip, and whispers, "Today is her day." There is no invitation, but there is purpose. She takes a deep breath, closes the door, and sets out toward a place where her name is no longer remembered. But her presence, oh, it still holds power. The city breathes urgency as she walks with short but steady steps. Buses rush by, horns blare. But Miss Bernice moves forward, as if each street corner were a chapter of a story the world forgot. She carries no flowers. She carries memories. She wears no heels. But she walks with dignity. As she crosses the mansion's iron gate, the contrast is immediate. A woman made invisible before a place built to be seen. The security guard stares. The guests look away. And the still empty hall already feels heavy with judgment. Miss Bernice doesn't flinch. She simply whispers, "Lord, walk with me." And while the music is rehearsed in the grand hall, and Grace applies the final touch of lipstick, neither of them knows that this reunion will not be just a memory of the past, but a rupture in the present, the kind of rupture that doesn't fit in rehearsed vows or embroidered veils. A silent presence is about to cross the aisle, but for now everything is still a masquerade, and every ceremony needs silence before the miracle. The mansion's front gate opens slowly, revealing a sidewalk strewn with petals and a beige carpet leading into the glowing hall. Across the street, Miss Bernice watches the scene unfold. Black cars with tinted windows line up in order as waiters with silver trays move like well-trained ants. She adjusts her floral dress, checks the brown purse on her shoulder, and takes a deep breath. No badge, no invitation, no family waiting to escort her in. Only a calm and stubborn desire to be there. Each step toward the gate feels longer than the years of distance. When she finally climbs the first step, a security guard blocks her with a curt gesture. "Ma'am, guests must present an invitation. The vendor entrance is around the side." "I am not a vendor." Her voice comes out calm, yet firm, like someone with nothing to hide and everything to offer. The guard sighs, impatient. "Then you must be at the wrong event." Miss Bernice gives him a soft smile. "I'm sure I'm in the right place." His eyes drift down to her worn shoes, then to her frayed bag, and back to the radio clipped to his belt. "Look, you have to understand, this is a private event." She simply stands there, doesn't push forward, doesn't step back. "I know," she says. "That's why I asked permission." Her reply catches him off guard for a moment, but he quickly snaps back into protocol. "Unfortunately, without ID, I can't let you in." Guests continue to arrive, stepping past her like she's part of the wall. A young couple glances sideways. A woman adjusts her gold clutch and whispers something to her husband. Miss Bernice doesn't hear it, but she feels it. She bends down, checking to make sure the photo is still safe in her purse, then straightens and faces the entrance again. Every movement is quiet, deliberate, like someone walking across thin ice. The guard gestures toward a stone bench nearby. "You can wait over there. When the event ends, maybe someone can help you." She hesitates, but doesn't move. "I just need a minute inside. I won't cause a scene." A second guard walks over. The first one whispers something. The new one, younger, asks, "Are you looking for someone? I can call someone from the team." She gives him a faint smile and gently shakes her head. If I told you, I doubt you'd believe me. They exchange looks, already losing patience. Ma'am, I'm afraid you'll have to leave. Miss Bernice takes a long breath, closes her eyes for a second and murmurs, barely audible. Lord, I just came to do what I promised. The guards don't hear her, don't care, too busy following rules, to notice a human being. She steps away from the door but doesn't leave. She sits on the stone bench beside the entrance, silent, hands resting on her purse. She watches each guest like she's waiting for a signal, a crack in the wall, a familiar face. Time passes. The ceremony draws closer. The movement grows more frantic. And she stays right there, still like a presence unscripted. Some glance at her and quickly look away. Others pretend she's not there. But she remains. Because sometimes, faith doesn't need a stage, just persistence. And then between trays and floral arrangements being rushed through side doors, a young waiter steps out and stops. His eyes narrow. He stares at her like someone recognizing a long-buried memory. Miss Bernice watches him silently, like someone who no longer expects anything, but still carries everything. Something shifts in the boy's gaze, and, there in the space between rejection and compassion, destiny finds a crack to slip through. The mansion's back corridor has no flowers, no soundtrack. It's made of smooth concrete, the scent of hot food, and the hurried clatter of cartwheels striking the floor. Malik holds the door open with his shoulder, still in a white apron, stained with wine, watching Miss Bernice with eyes caught between surprise and tenderness. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asks in a near whisper as if afraid to draw attention. She simply nods, adjusting the strap of her purse on her shoulder. "They said this wasn't a place for me, but I came anyway." Malik hesitates, glances around. "Come with me, but it's this way, through the back." She doesn't protest. She follows with the quiet dignity of someone who knows the road of humility all too well. The path is narrow and stuffy, lined with stacked boxes and waiters rushing by with silver trays. One brushes past Miss Bernice's shoulder without an apology. Another grumbles at the sight of an elderly woman crossing through a space not meant for her. Malik walks ahead, making way with his body, shielding her without needing to say a word. "You'll sit way in the back, all right? It's not much, but better than being outside." Miss Bernice just smiles, already grateful for the kindness even before receiving it. Her floral dress, set against the backdrop of stainless steel walls, looks almost out of place and out of time, but she walks on, steady. Every step is a choice. They slip through a velvet curtain and into the grand hall. The chandelier's brilliance and the cloud of expensive perfume hit all at once, like a wave trying to swallow everything. Miss Bernice squints for a moment. In here, everything shines, except her. Malik gestures subtly toward a row of chairs in the far corner, tucked behind a golden column. "Sit there. No one will notice." She walks toward the empty seat like it's her own private altar. Gently she sits, places the purse on her lap, and breathes deeply. She doesn't look around, doesn't seek acknowledgement. She's here for something no one else understands. Not yet. Guests stand, speaking in hushed voices, holding pearl-embossed wedding programs. A woman comments on the bride's veil. A man straightens his tie and asks about the dinner menu. No one notices the woman in the corner. She doesn't match the scene. But there's something in her presence that quietly softens the extravagance around her. She slides her fingers along the edge of her purse and closes her eyes for a moment. Inside, she whispers words that don't need to be spoken aloud. She prays, as she always has, not for applause, but because it's how she endures. Malik hurries back to the kitchen, but before he disappears, he glances one last time at Miss Bernice. Something in her eyes touches him. A peace that defies the room she's in. A peace that needs no tapestries, no approval. Outside, the bells begin to chime, signaling the start of the ceremony. All heads turn toward the grand staircase. The murmuring fades. Classical music begins to swell, and Miss Bernice, seated in the last pew, simply bows her head and closes her eyes. The whole world looks forward, but she already sees what no one else can. The hall falls silent as if time itself were holding its breath. All eyes turn toward the top of the grand staircase, where each step is lined with white flowers and glass candles. The classical music swells, majestic and deliberate, drawing out rehearsed emotions, and then she appears. Grace Whitmore, draped in French lace and a tulle veil, every detail of her gown designed to dazzle. But her face doesn't match the shine around her. Her eyes aren't searching for the groom nor for the guests. They're searching for something no one else seems to notice. She steps down one stair, then another, her heels echoing like the heartbeat of someone at war within. Phones rise into the air. Photos, videos, frozen smiles. But Grace doesn't smile. Her posture is flawless, but her shoulders hold a stiffness, like the dress is heavier than it should be. Her father, at her side, seems more focused on keeping in step than on his daughter. From afar, her mother watches with tight lips, managing every detail with her eyes. The groom waits at the altar, smiling toward the guests, until he notices the distant expression on the bride's face. She reaches the bottom of the stairs. Megan doesn't look at him. Instead, her gaze scans the rows of people, just for a moment. A subtle movement, as if she's searching for a silent presence hidden in the crowd. The officiant begins the ceremony with a steady voice, reading the pre-written words. But something feels off. The room is too beautiful, too perfect. And perfection, at times, is just a frame designed to hide emptiness. Grace holds her bouquet, but her fingers are tense. She pretends to listen, but her soul seems somewhere else. The groom tries to touch her arm. She allows it, but doesn't respond. In the back row, a modest woman in a floral dress, eyes closed, prays in silence. Unbeknownst to anyone, the blessing that's missing doesn't come from the officiant's encouragement, but from that forgotten pew. A woman in the second row whispers to her friend, "She seems off, doesn't she? So cold." The other replies, "Probably just nerves, or afraid of repeating her parents' mistakes." Soft laughter follows, but Miss Bernice doesn't hear it. That's not why she came. Her eyes remain closed. Her prayer is silent, but it moves through the hall like a fragrance only the mindful can smell. While everyone looks toward the altar, she looks within, where the promise that brought her here still lives. The music resumes between the officiant's lines. Words about love, fidelity, building a life together, all sound proper yet hollow, as if they're staging a performance too expensive to be sincere. And then Grace lifts her eyes once more. For a fleeting moment, she seems to see something in the back of the room, but the image vanishes quickly like a sigh. She looks away, swallows hard, and says, "I do," with a trembling voice. In the last pew, Miss Bernice doesn't move. She just gently presses the edge of the photo tucked inside her purse. It's not time yet, but time is already beginning to shift. The ceremony moves forward with rehearsed speeches and forced smiles. The officiant speaks of eternal vows, of love as a choice, of building a life together, but no one seems to really be listening. Guests' eyes begin to wander, searching for distractions in the ornate details of the hall, and that's when some of them notice her. Sitting in the very last row, almost hidden behind a marble column, is an older black woman wearing a floral dress that feels out of season and holding a leather purse worn as thin as her history. For a moment, the silence shifts, not from reverence but from discomfort. A blonde woman with her hair pinned up leans toward her daughter and whispers, "Who let her in?" The girl giggles. A man subtly cranes his neck and frowns. She must be staff, lost maybe. The doubt spreads like a bitter perfume. Miss Bernice remains still. Her hands rest on her purse. Her gaze, calm and unshaken, doesn't drift. She's not looking at the guests, not even at the groom, only at the bride. as if this moment holds a different meaning for her, something deeply personal, something the others wouldn't understand, and maybe shouldn't. The photo tucked between pages of her Bible stays untouched, but Miss Bernice's fingers graze it, like reaching for a harbor, a memory, the kind of memory that only lives in those who've been forgotten. A waiter walks past her, hesitates for a second, then moves on. A young man whispers, "Maybe she's related to the groom?" Another replies, "Doubt it, her dress doesn't match this place." Whispered judgments make more noise than people think. But Miss Bernice doesn't react. Or maybe she hears every word and chooses silence. The bride's mother, seated in the first row, discreetly turns her head. Her eyes land on the back row. There's a breath of tension in the air. Then she turns back toward the altar, pretending not to have seen anything, as if ignoring could erase someone's presence. But Miss Bernice doesn't vanish. She's still there, steady, whole, visibly out of place, and yet completely unmoved, like a buried truth that refuses to stay buried. At the altar, Grace falters for a moment. Her voice catches as she tries to respond. The officiant repeats the question. She corrects herself with a quick smile, but her eyes are no longer focused on the crowd. She's looking toward the back, toward that forgotten corner of the room. And then, she sees her. She sees the woman in the floral dress, and something inside her collapses. Her posture breaks. Her breath catches. The bouquet nearly slips from her fingers. That image, in the back, shatters her armor. The ceremony doesn't stop, but inside Grace, everything stops. The world around her keeps spinning, but she's finally found what she was searching for. She just doesn't know yet if she has the courage to face it. Grace's eyes lock onto the back of the hall, as if time itself had frozen. She no longer hears the officiant's voice. The words dissolve into static. The scent of the flowers fades. The heat from the spotlight presses heavier than it should. All that remains is that still figure, seated unmoving, as out of place as the unresolved longing that refuses to stay buried. The woman in the floral dress. The one who shouldn't be there, and yet somehow feels like the only presence that truly matters. Grace's hand trembles. The bouquet slips slightly. The groom leans in and whispers, "You okay?" She doesn't answer, blinks twice, then swallows hard. Her heart beats loudly like it wants to burst through her chest. Someone in the second row whispers, "What now?" Another guest shifts uncomfortably, trying to hide their concern, but no one there understands. No one but her. Only the bride sees what is about to unravel. Miss Bernice doesn't move. She sits as she always has, with the poise of someone who carries old burdens but still keeps her head high. Her eyes, brown and weathered with time, meet Grace's, and the entire hall dissolves into that single gaze. There is no anger, no blame, no loud sorrow, only a quiet strength, a loving steadiness, the kind that stays even after being forgotten. A gaze that doesn't demand, doesn't intrude, it simply exists, present, like a promise never broken. The officiant pauses, visibly thrown. "Is everything all right?" he asks gently, leaning toward the microphone. Grace smiles, but it's a cracked smile, a shard of glass caught between her lips. She shakes her head softly, as if trying to chase away something or someone wrong from within. The groom adjusts his tie, growing impatient. The bride's mother takes a subtle step forward, as if she could still control the scene with her gaze, but nothing can control what's being born in that moment. A silent earthquake, a reunion not yet named. Grace steps back. Just one step, but enough for everyone to notice. A murmur ripples through the room like a live wire. The lights feel hotter. Eyes dart in every direction. The photographer lowers his camera. Something has veered off script. Something that doesn't fit inside a ring or under a veil. The officiant tries to resume, but Grace interrupts. Not with words, but with her eyes fixed on the woman in the back row. She came, Grace whispers, softly, to herself, like seeing a ghost, and feeling her soul finally settle. No one understands, no one knows, but everyone senses that something too important to ignore is about to be said, or remembered, or returned. Grace steps down from the altar, eyes filled with tears, ignoring the puzzled stares around her. The music stops. The officiant tries to hold her back, but she doesn't hear him. Her hands still clutch the bouquet, but the gesture no longer makes sense, as if all of it, the flowers, the veil, the rings, had ceased to matter. Her steps are slow, slightly unsteady, but there is no hesitation. She walks down the aisle like someone making their way home, and one by one, the guests turn to watch what none of them can yet understand. Miss Bernice sees her approaching and for a moment seems ready to stand. But something in the bride's posture stops her, as if to say, "Stay, I need to come to you." Grace stops right in front of her, eyes unguarded. She takes a deep breath, like someone who has finally found air after years underwater. And then she kneels. Right there, before the forgotten woman in the back row. The silence in the hall is absolute. No one dares to interrupt. Even whispers are afraid to be born. "You taught me everything that truly matters," Grace says, her voice breaking. "Before I could walk, it was you who carried me." Miss Bernice closes her eyes for a moment. A single tear runs down her cheek. Grace continues. "You taught me how to pray, how to say I'm sorry, how to listen without judgment, how to love with truth." Her voice falters, but she gently holds the older woman's hand. "I tried to forget you. They told me I had to, said you weren't part of my world anymore." Around them, people begin to understand and quietly come undone. The bride's mother clenches her expression, but doesn't move. The groom stands frozen, unsure of what to do. And Grace, still kneeling, says, "I thought you'd never come back, but every day I waited." Miss Bernice squeezes her hand and replies with the same calm voice as always, "I never left, baby girl. They just put me outside." And then, for the first time since entering, she smiles. Not a party smile, a smile of homecoming. The lights feel warmer, the flowers more vibrant, because there are moments not made for cameras, but for healing. Grace rests her head in Miss Bernice's lap, just like she used to as a child. And there, before everyone, without luxury, without script, the only miracle that truly matters, takes place: the return, the living memory of the one who loved her first. Still kneeling with tear-filled eyes and her heart exposed, Grace clutches Miss Bernice's hand tightly, as if only now remembering what truly matters. The guests watch in silence. There are no more whispers, no polite smiles, only a collective discomfort, the unease of witnessing truth tear through the veil of appearances. Miss Bernice slowly opens her faded brown purse. Her fingers, worn by time, sift through handkerchiefs and yellowed pages, until she finds it. A worn paper, folded so carefully it seems sacred. She unfolds it slowly. The entire hall seems to hold its breath. And there, in the palm of her hand, rests an old photograph. A 4-year-old blonde girl laughing, her cheek pressed against the chest of a black woman in a floral dress. The image is faded, but the bond is unmistakable. Grace looks and breaks down. She covers her mouth with her hand. Tears rush to her eyes. It's that photo. The one I thought I'd lost. Miss Bernice smiles softly. "You never lost it, baby. I just kept it safe, for when you were ready to see it again." Emotion spills across the crystal hall. The guests look on, some with shame in their eyes. others with quiet reverence. A woman discreetly wipes away a tear. A young man whispers, "She raised the bride?" No one answers, because this isn't a moment for answers. It's a moment to feel. Miss Bernice holds the photo in one hand and gently runs the other through Grace's hair, the way she used to when nights were soothed by lullabies and whispered prayers in the dark. "She was my little girl," Miss Bernice says, her voice trembling, yet strong. "But I always knew the day would come when she'd have to leave me. The world decided that, not her." Grace weeps, but now without shame, only gratitude, only rediscovered longing. And for the first time in that wedding, love feels real. No labels, no protocols, just love, pure, aged, alive. Grace slowly stands, still holding Miss Bernice's hand, and helps her to her feet. The two of them stand in the middle of the aisle in front of everyone, a moment that was never rehearsed, never planned, and precisely because of that, it's real. They embrace tightly, a hug that asks for no apologies, demands no explanations. It simply seals what was already sealed in the heart. And then a figure moves from the front row, the bride's mother. Her high heels echo across the marble floor, but her face carries no applause. It carries something else. A discomfort too, big to fit in silence. The sound of Grace's mother's heels echoes like judgment. Each step tightens the air in the hall. She stops in front of the two women, arms crossed, chin raised, her gaze a blend of discomfort and disbelief. This is a wedding, Grace, not some soap opera scene. Her voice is dry, sharp, like a blade that never learned to cut gently. Guests shift in their seats, caught between discomfort and curiosity. Grace, still holding Miss Bernice's hand, takes a deep breath before answering. "Inappropriate," Grace repeats, eyes locked on her mother. "Inappropriate is pretending my story only began when I put on this dress." The words fall like a quiet thunderclap. The groom watches in silence. The officiant looks lost. Miss Bernice lowers her gaze, not in shame, but like someone who knows some battles aren't avoided. They're faced with grace and strength. Grace's mother gives a nervous half-smile. "You're ruining what should be the most important moment of your life." But her daughter no longer bends. "What matters is honoring the one who loved me when no one else had time." Grace holds up the faded photograph, still visible to all. "How many nights did she put me to bed? How many songs did she sing to me while you were in Paris, or pretending to be too busy?" Her mother opens her mouth to respond, but finds no words. The flawless makeup now looks like a cracking mask. A timid applause begins from the back of the room, then another, and another. It's not performance applause, it's something deeper, a soul moved. Miss Bernice lifts her head and, with a soft but steady voice, says, "I didn't come here to cause a scene. I came to bless the little girl I never stopped loving." Silence. The kind of silence that says everything. She doesn't accuse, doesn't demand. She simply remains, as she always has. Grace looks around, sees the faces, sees the hollowness behind the polished facades, and she understands. This moment isn't just about reunion, it's about liberation, about breaking free from the script written by those who never understood real love. Then, the groom steps forward. He looks at Miss Bernice with respect and extends his hand. "Would you bless us?" The question dissolves the last remnants of pride in the room. The officiant lowers his eyes. The mother stands still, suddenly smaller. Miss Bernice smiles, places her hand over her heart, and with tears she refuses to let fall, simply says, "With all my heart." And there, in a hall built for spectacle, truth finally takes the stage. The ceremony continues, but nothing is as it was, because now there is presence, there is root, and at the center of those rings, there is finally memory. The celebration continues, but something has changed. The hall is no longer the same, and it's not because of the decorations. It's the atmosphere, the different kind of breath shared among the guests. A newfound lightness, as if a window had finally been opened and fresh air could pour in. The DJ announces the bride's dance with her father. Everyone turns toward the dance floor, expecting the usual routine: the formal embrace, the choreographed steps, the smile for the camera. But Grace hesitates. She searches the room with her eyes and finds her. Miss Bernice is seated again, calm as if she had already received all she needed. But Grace walks toward her and reaches out her hand. "Will you dance with me?" The request sounds simple, but carries a lifetime within it. Miss Bernice smiles, surprised, and rises slowly. Her floral dress sways as if it knew this was the most beautiful moment it had ever been stitched for. In the background, a soft song begins. It's not a waltz, not jazz. It's something more intimate, something that seems to have been tucked away in both their memories. The steps are slow, almost none at all, but enough to fill the hall with a respectful hush. It's not a dance meant to impress. It's a dance meant to remember, to give thanks, to heal. Grace rests her head on Miss Bernice's shoulder, just like she used to when she was little. The older woman gently strokes her back. And for a moment, everything returns. The nights of prayer, the arms that rocked her, the lullabies whispered at the edge of the bed. They are all there, dancing too. Some guests take photos, but most simply watch, speechless. Grace's mother stands near the head table, watching with a mix of pain and belated respect. The groom smiles. Malik, the waiter, watches from afar, deeply moved. A photographer captures the moment without flash, as if he instinctively knows this is not something to interrupt, only to witness. Because some dances don't need music, they need silence. At the end of the song, Miss Bernice kisses Grace's forehead and softly says, "You were always my little girl. Even when the world tried to erase me." Grace closes her eyes, whispers a thank you, and hand in hand they return slowly to the table. The celebration continues, but now, everything is different. Not because of the cake or the toast, but because what was missing has arrived. Because when love is real, even without an invitation, even through the back door, and it always finds its way home. Miss Bernice never had to raise her voice to be heard, never had to demand space to be seen. She simply remained, as she always had, because there are women who don't need a stage, they need dignity. And there are stories that don't ask for justice, they ask to be acknowledged. Her presence was a whisper amid the noise of appearances, a reminder that love isn't measured by blood, but by who stays even when pushed aside. She walked through a door that wasn't hers, and yet she was the one who brought the blessing. Grace changed too, not out of shame, but out of courage. The courage to bow before the one who loved her when the world was too busy, to recognize a root that was nearly ripped out in the rush to look perfect. She didn't lose the wedding. She redeemed it, because in that moment, dancing with Miss Bernice, she understood what no etiquette class had ever taught her: that true love doesn't need to be remembered. It simply waits. And when the soul is ready, it returns. How many times have you overlooked the one who shaped you from the inside? How many times has your search for approval made you forget the person who taught you how to walk? Maybe what's missing from your celebration isn't luxury or applause, but the presence of someone who saw you long before you even knew yourself. Do you have the courage to turn toward the back row of your own life and look into the eyes of the one who's been invisible for far too long? Because the most powerful reunion isn't always with others. Sometimes, it's with the truth you left behind. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Because someone out there is still waiting to be remembered, and maybe today is the day to return, even if it's through the back door.